What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. In the previous video, you guys should have seen we worked on Project Blueberry and we reinstalled all the suspension components. We are most definitely moving along with Project Blueberry, and in today's video we're going to be installing the new coilovers provided by MaXpeedingrods. Want to give a big shout out to MaXpeedingrod and Macy once more for the continuous support in the last few years. I've ran the MaXpeedingrod Street Basic coilover in the Flipper X CRX with a little preload. That thing rides freaking awesome. The car is still driving around here somewhere. I actually saw it on Facebook for sale last night. I currently have the MaXpeedingrod SP1 coilovers, which is the black and blue body with the pillow top mounts in the all-wheel drive red CRX. That suspension is also preloaded a little bit more, and this thing rides pretty damn stiff for what it is. My brother's car is not here right now, but his wagon is also on the MaXpeedingrod SP1 coilovers, and he's been driving the car, and I haven't really got any real reviews back from him just yet. In Project Blueberry, guys, we have some new line MaXpeedingrod coilovers. This is called the SP2. And there are a few things that has been changed with this new coilover setup. I have the new coilovers right here on the table, so let's go ahead and unbox this and check it out. As always, MaXpeedingrod does provide the perch wrenches right here along with the Allen keys for adjustability. They also have this right here, which contains a MaXpeedingrod sticker, the installation instruction, and the MaXpeedingrod catalog. Okay, so from the looks of this one, there are no oil inside the bag. Now, I'm not entirely sure why some people get their packages with oil, and most times they don't come with oil on it. So I really don't have an explanation for that. I can tell you the front coilovers are most definitely heavier than the last. In this baggie right here, we have the collars for the different years of Honda forks. So if you're using the EG or DC or maybe even the EK, you have to install this collar. If you're using the suspension for the EF or the DAs, you run them without. This bracket right here bolts onto the body of the coilover to allow you to bolt down your brake lines. There are two of them there. The SP2 coilover still has the dampening right here on the top. You can go full left for softness, or you can go full right for hard. And I also do notice that the spherical top hat is a little bit different than the SP1 coilover. The SP1 has this giant gap in the middle, where the SP2 seems like the ball bearing spherical top hat is integrated into the top hat and eliminates that giant gap that used to be here before. That's good to know, because I feel like this may help with the height adjustability to be able to get more low out of it. Although we're not going to go low with this suspension at all, they are still rubbered in the rear. If they had spherical front and rear, this suspension will be pretty solid, I think. It also says online that the SP2 coilovers uses a different fluid on the inside, which is more for like performance enhancement. I don't really know that, but the only way to really know is to go and drive on it, because I do have the experience with the basic street. I do have experience with the SP1 coilovers. Now I can compare it with the SP2. Now, I've mentioned this to you guys before in all of the previous MaXpeedingrod coilover install. I always check the preload to make sure that they are nice and tightened. And if you prefer to have it a little bit more loaded, you can always preload the suspension a little bit more. Okay, so by the looks of it, the coilover seems to be pretty loaded. That's good to know. As I mentioned earlier, the spring rates in the front looks a lot thicker than the rear, and you can definitely feel the weight difference, right? According to the website, the SP2 coilover front shock spring is upgraded to 11K, while the rear is upgraded to 7. On the SP1 coilover, it's actually 8 in the front and 5 in the rear. Although this is 11 and 7, I still would prefer the rear to have a little bit stiffer spring rate. But I've never really had an issue with the 5 before with the load, so I am going to load the rear a little bit more, but I think I'm going to leave the front alone. You guys already know this. Double check the nuts. This is nice and tight. This one feels really good. Okay, so this is why it's important to check. This is the front coilover, and I can still turn it. make sure you double check your suspension out of the box. Okay, nice and tight. I'm not gonna load the rear too much because again, this is dampening, so I'll just put it on full stiff to help it with the rebound. But I am gonna try to turn it as much as I can. I'm able to turn this a lot because it is a soft spring rate. But again, I'm not gonna try to adjust it too much. I'm gonna measure from the top of the hat down to the first collar. We are 7 1/8. Out of the box, it is 7 3/8. So we went up a little bit, and I think I'm just gonna leave it there. I mean, the only way to really know is to drive the car and see how it feels, and then adjust the suspension as we go. So the rear suspension is loaded. I'm not touching the front. I did double check all the collars to make sure they're nice and locked. All the nuts on the top are nice and locked as well too. The height is gonna have to be adjusted once I have the right wheels onto the car. But for right now, I am going to adjust this to the previous suspension that was in the car, and then we're gonna get these installed into Project Blueberry. As I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna remove the provided hardware for the top hat because the engine bay is going to use Resto Tuner hardware. So I have that right here. They are nice zinc coated. You can go to restotuners.com and pick up hardware for your car if you want it to be like OE plus. Go ahead and throw the shock in here. EGDCs, EKs, do not forget the collar. $14 on the top. $17 on the bottom. I didn't tighten the bottom bolt all the way because the fork still has to come out for me to put the axle on when the engine goes into the car. But for the most part, driver's side installed. Now the rear coilover does not have a nut on. Now the rear coilover body does not have a nut on the mounting point, so you're gonna have to use an external nut. And because we removed the original hardware in the front, I'm just gonna use it for the rear. I'm gonna turn the knob all the way to the right for full stiff. Same goes for this side. I'm gonna adjust this all the way to the left, and then I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 24 clicks, but I'm only going to do 12. So I'm going to do a middle for the front suspension because we do have the stiffer spring rate in the front. And if I wanted to be more stiffer, obviously I can max it out, but I'm going to go 12 click back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have the new MaXpeedingrods SP2 coilovers installed on Project Blueberry, and I'm stoked that the suspension stuff is almost complete. But for the most part, this thing is almost ready for rollers. Rollers as in wheels. But I'm not going to show you guys the wheels until we get the rest of the parts for the exterior of the car, and we'll make that into its own video on how I'm going to make this car look good on the outside. This car does have a deadline, and it is going to be a very long road trip, so we will test out the MaXpeedingrod SP2 coilovers then. I want to give a big thank you and a huge shout out to MaXpeedingrod and Macy for the continuous support throughout the years. They provided the SP2 coilovers in today's video. You guys already know, if you're interested in any MaXpeedingrod product or the coilover itself, the link is always in the description below, as well as the discount code to save a few bucks before checkout. If you guys enjoyed today's progress on Project Blueberry, be sure to leave this video a thumbs up. And if you guys want to stick around for the engine stuff, I am going to be pulling it out tomorrow. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.